building bridges inakuja. Wangapi wanaunga mkono? Wangapi wanaunga mkono?
Wanasema ati BBI Uhuru anataka kazi, mimi sitaki kazi, nimechoka. BBI ni kuhakikisha ya kwamba hakuna Mkenya atamwaga damu tena katika nchi yetu.
We understand the BBI report is about to be ready and to be released. We are going to read it. Tutaisoma kwa makini sana hiyo BBI. Lakini tunaangalia kitu kimoja. Kama BBI inaongeza pesa mazinani. Kama iongezi pesa mazinani, tutaiangusha. Itaangushwa tu kama vile punguza mizigo iliangushwa.
Right, the conversation is already heating up on social media at NTV Kenya, at Ken Mijungu. The hashtag, as always, is SideBar. Also on Facebook, we'll be sampling some of your comments. And tonight, we are very deliberate with our show. We've decided to keep off politicians and bring the conversation where it matters most. Your voice has to be heard, and we are also deliberate with our panel tonight. That's why we're bringing the phone lines on this evening. And if you want to participate in the program, we'll be putting them as scrolls down there on your screen so that you can be able to call in and contribute and ask questions to my panel, because these gentlemen have been following up the conversation from the onset to this point. They were also watching what was said in Mombasa and have been keeping abreast with everything that is happening in the country. So tonight we begin with the BBI debate. And obviously there was a tone that was set in Mombasa, and that tone was what was quickly poured on that tone. And by the end of the day, more questions again about the viability of the BBI and the report. But more interesting, gentlemen, is the fact that tomorrow is the deadline. And it seems as though the report will not be presented to the president by tomorrow. The president is in Japan, right? So where does that leave us? Because we are not even sure of the content. There's a lot of school of thought that goes to explain why that report has not been released. But let me hear from you, Mark Bichache. Let me begin with you.
You know, what I find very funny about us Kenyans is how our imaginations are limitless. Number one, BBI is not a strange animal. When the handshake was held at Harambee House, we were given a 9-point agenda: national ethos, electoral reform, inclusivity. So you've been given what the exam was about. The answers to that exam must be the same things. What the report can only report what the questions were. And the questions were, number one, what do we do about national ethos? Number two, what do we do about corruption? Number three, what do we do about electoral reform, and so on and so forth. So for me, all the speculation and the negativity around BBI is quite unwarranted, because the BBI question is not a question of prime minister or no prime minister. That's not the question. The question is, how do we build a cohesive society? And building a cohesive society is about the national ethos.
You're making this look really simple, Mark. But we spend hundreds of millions of shillings going around to collect views on very simple things like you're making it.
We know even Punguza Mzigo still cost us money. When the guy did it in his backyard alone, when he brought it to us, we still needed to do public participation. So the issue is not cost. The issue is, how do you bring up a Kenyan who you are sure, when you make them the chair of a football team, they will not steal? That's national ethos. How do we make sure that the young people in high school today, when they come out of high school, they're not thinking, oh my goodness, how can I do a deal with government and steal from this country? How do we build a citizen that can build this country? Now, is that a conversation that is worth being had? Yes, because the children who are dying because doctors have stolen medicine deserve that country. They deserve a country which has a national conversation about the character that we have. Now,
all right. So how did this conversation get so simplified into a referendum debate then?
That's the problem of Kenyans giving time to politicians to think on their behalf.
Okay, hold your thoughts. Arnold, you're not agreeing with Mark.
You know, I look at Mark speak and I feel like Mark really underestimates the intelligence of Kenyans. Because for one, we have got politicians who have promised to deliver a hare and they brought a squirrel. So people have got a right to be apprehensive and to think around what is actually coming around. And the way it's being marketed, you'll actually think something somewhere so big is actually coming. You know, it's not out there and we're being told support. typical of snake oil salesmanship. We have not seen it, but we are being told that when it comes, it will be earth-shaking. When it comes, and we have not seen it. He's making it so simple, yet we are being told that when it shows up on the on our shows, when it hits the shows, we will have tsunami, we will have the changes.
Is there a 9-point agenda?
That 9 agenda cannot be trusted because we have seen in the past when, especially so long as it's a political process, the outcome is not necessarily what is being said. So unless, Mark, you sat with those guys and saw what they have written, I would want to be very skeptical with you saying that it's something that is rather obvious.
Yeah, that we should have known from the 9-point agenda.
Why are we spending money?
Was already said. That's what Mark is telling us.
Why are we spending? Yes. We actually, as in, we know the people we are dealing with are people who promised 1 million jobs, and they promised for the youth, and they promised 10 for their friends who are very old like themselves. As in, these guys can deliver anything.
I love your negativity.
Typical
Kenyan. For every solution, you must have a problem.
We have got experience.
What we should all be agreeing with is yes, and Honorable Liba has said, it's the politicians who seem to be driving this narrative. I think what we need to bring home is how do we remove it from the political hands and bring it to Anjiko?
But that's not possible.
It is very possible. No, it is very possible. Listen, the 9-point agenda
for us in this country.
The 9-point agenda. The people who were rowdy were Kenyans.
Okay.
All right? The people who are corrupt, albeit the fact that we can point our leaders, Kenyans are. So all these things we are dealing with on the 9-point agenda, they speak to the hearts of Kenyans. Now, the problem will be if we allow politicians to run with it.
But how do we get away from politicians, Gabriel? How do we make sure that they don't...
We've always done it when the time mattered. And I think this time is where me and Arnold need to engage.
Okay.
Right? We need to engage. Not with the leaders, but we need to speak amongst ourselves and gather our thoughts and decide how do we want this Kenya moving forward.
Are we skeptical as Kenyans?
With Mark, I'll agree with him when he said it's actually very simple. We are actually making, it is. We are actually making, we want to make it so gigantic, and that's why you're hearing things like referendum. I never read anywhere among those points that would be talking about a referendum. What I know and what I've seen is there will be, after the 9 points have come, there will be a conversation. No. There will be a conversation
in the sand.
Ken, are you telling me? Have you seen anywhere where we are talking about this? What do you call it? About the positions that we're talking about. Positions? Have you seen anywhere where we're talking about?
No, but we're waiting for the report. We're just looking at the report.
Yes, but it was not among the 9-point agenda.
But we're assuming that's the only thing in the BBI report.
Because that's what was presented.
I want Kenyans, because the lines are open and they can reach us on Twitter and Facebook. Right. I want a Kenyan to say, I disagree, Kenya has a national ethos problem. I want a Kenyan to say, I disagree, we should not fight against corruption.
Correct.
I disagree that we don't need electoral reform. I disagree that, you see, here's the thing. Let's understand. Our leaders are Kenyans. When you become an MP, you do not get a passport for Uganda. So let's understand, 1. Number 2, the BBI report, whether you like it or not, must be owned by the Kenyan people. We are acting as if we act in a constitutional dispensation where Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta can sit in their bedrooms and decide that Kenya will become a monarchy.
What's happening. That's precisely what happening.
No. Guys, let me finish. Let's be very clear. That the process that is the BBI, and the thing that they're supposed to deliver is a report. Is it a report of the opinions of Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga?
No. Yes.
No.
Precisely.
Where was the origin of the 9-point agenda?
Can I finish? Okay. These two gentlemen sat down after an election, which you and I begged Uhuru Kenyatta throughout the period of the second election, begging him to meet Raila Odinga.
At least I did.
Just let me finish.
Okay.
They met, okay, and they said, you know what? Based on the disagreements and the things we've had,
disagreement between who and who, Mark?
That's why I say
yes.
From their supporters, because
really, who rallies these supporters? Who rallies these supporters behind them, Mark?
Can I finish?
You have to finish. Be honest with that.
Let me finish. Yes. Let me finish. By the time any political party, any politician, all right, is running for office, how do they convince us to vote for them? They convince us because we expect that they carry our ambitions, our dreams, and the solutions to our problems. When they sat down, they came up with an agenda. And that's why I've challenged. If you think that the fight against corruption is not a Kenyan agenda, tell me. If you think national ethos is not a Kenyan agenda, tell me. If you think that electoral reform is not a Kenyan agenda, tell me. But if you think inclusivity is not a Kenyan agenda, tell me.
Where is the problem with everything you've been telling us? Tell us if there's a vacuum in our laws that does not take care of any of those points
you
you've
see,
made.
the report is not a bill. The report is to say that we had...
But that's not my question, Mark.
Yes.
Tell us that those things don't exist. They have not been taken care of with our current laws. Tell us.
Can I tell you?
Yes.
Let me tell you, and this is the thing. If you go at home today and you write the rules of your home on your fridge, will your 3-year-old obey them? No. The problem in this country...
mean they don't exist.
In this country is we have...
I'm coming to you. I'm coming to you.
In this country,
yes,
we have a lot of laws. You tell me whether you come from the governors
so
to the
the problem is not the law.
It is the ethos.
Okay.
And that's why BBI is talking about it's the ethos of the people.
Maliba hasn't spoken. I'm coming to you. Maliba.
You know, number one, truth is that the 9-point agenda he's actually going lyrical about is everything we know. Number one, we were never consulted on summing up the 9. Who told them we wanted the 9 only?
Yes. How did they get to the 9?
How did they get that? They didn't consult us. 2, Mark.
That's the truth, Mark.
It was 3 months after an election.
Mark, just a moment.
You gave Uhuru a mandate.
Mark, just a moment. As in, they did not consult us.
No, was there an election?
An election, was it a consultation?
Did you give him...
Was the election a consultation?
Head of state
No.
Can we hear Maliba then come to
So,
yes,
whatever Mark is saying is neither here nor there. We were not consulted on the 9-point agenda.
yes, it's not on record.
And
that
whatever the people, whatever the people,
Mark,
is it about ethos? Is that about
yes,
national ethos?
You have to let Maliba
No,
speak.
so this is it. Number one, like I said, we were not consulted. Number two, the people who Mark is actually holding brief for, talking about 9-point agenda, have not spoken about those 9 points agenda. They've actually spoken about other things. Yes.
Give us what they've spoken about. Mark seemed to be sure that's
the
what
former Prime
about.
Minister has been quoted not 1 time, not 2 times, but 1 time too many, that a referendum must come. The President is talking about people not dying and the other things. Of course, we have had much more than that. What we know from where we sit, and that is why Kenyans actually are thinking out there, is that these guys are looking for an opportunity to bend and break, then replace the Constitution as it were. Because that is the language we are being told. Mark, if we have got a problem with the corruption, does it call for a committee to meet and us having a national dialogue around that?
As if we don't
that
have
is not
existing
the only.
laws on
Just a moment,
corruption.
I'll come back.
Yes.
That is not the only way to deal with it. Do we have a problem with our electoral process? Yes. Is the solution going out, giving some people a little bit of money to sit around and think on their own and then bring us an idea? Then we are being told a referendum must come. The thing is that we are in a perfect storm. We've not been here just the other day. We've always been around here for quite a while. We've not left what we call a perfect storm. And these guys are just playing around with us as usual. BBI for me is perfect snake oil, because every time we have got a problem, then we are talking about having a national dialogue, then having a legislative review, and most of the issues Mark has actually listed can actually be taken care of administratively. Today, they actually are having an extra constitutional process, because you know that BBI in the first place is not anchored anywhere. But of course, as a policy person, I will tell you that I know places where you can justify. So the 9 points agenda was actually just a jackpot justification. That was a way of getting money.
Maliba, listening to you, I get the impression that BBI should have not happened from the beginning.
We had other opportunities. This was not the only one.
Okay.
This national dialogue story is actually, in my opinion, is not something that we actually, it's not a viable strategy that every time we have got a problem, let us have a national dialogue. What kind of dialogue is this?
I would have asked you, what are our options?
The options, number one, for example, when we fail
Yes.
to push through with implementing the Constitution, let us have a national dialogue. When we are unable to jail our friends, let us have a national dialogue. When we are unable
It's a quick fix
to
to
hire
you.
young people, let us have a national
quick
dialogue.
fix.
When we steal and bring down the economy, let us have a national dialogue. What is this dialogue about?
Over time,
Yes.
over time, and this is very clear, over time we've been having an issue that keeps recurring, that every time we have an election, before and after an election, if you ask, researchers have actually documented, it's like Kenya in itself, you know, hibernates, all right, into a political vacuum. Every time we are coming close to an election, you have 2 years where things are going south. All right. So this is why I think, you know, it predicated for, you know, the handshake to come in. And albeit the fact that many people supported the handshake initially, it gave birth to the 9 pointers that we are talking about. And here the clear indicator, Bwana Maliba, was how do we farm up the fact that businesses are not suffering ruin, lives are not lost. I think we came in with a clear head as to how to sort out this situation. So if it gave way or paved way to BBI, so be it. The problem we are doing, and I think we're overtaking ourselves, and we need to be very clear about this, is first of all, we've not seen the recommendations that BBI will bring. So what we are going to do, the best we are going to do, and I think what we are doing right now is speculate. But
No,
what
we're not talking
I'm
about
concerned,
the
what
content.
I'm concerned about, what I'm concerned about, oh, right, I mean, hear what people are saying. Look at all our mitandaos. Everybody is sending what they think will be contained in the BBI, and that's
including
what
the leaders
exactly.
themselves,
And that's where we want.
leaders.
Ken, let me tell you, that is where we should run away from. What I think I would like to see at the end of it is a more united Kenya. My worry is, Arnold,
It
if
doesn't matter
BBI
to
is
you how we
hijacked,
unite Kenya so long as we're united. I just,
you know, at the end of
it,
it, you know, when you're talking about unity, it gives you a purpose. When Kenya is united, we now see things clearer. It is better a united Kenya. I've never seen a place where chaos produces order.
Okay.
All right? So the minute we are united, at least we can see clearly. So if there are things that, that Arnold and Mark Bichache and yourself, things that can be injected in BBI that can bring together, that are Wanjiku-driven, so be it. My only problem is where we are heading with this when politicians take the first or the initial step. We'll lose it.
Yes,
and
Mark.
Ken, this is the thing that we must fix in this country urgently. You can spend 5 minutes waxing lyrical about saying national conversations don't work, and in those 5 minutes not once give a solution. And that's what I call a problem for every solution. That's what Kenyans do. Now let me ask a question. If you caught malaria today, okay, how many doses of drugs will you be given? The truth is, one mosquito bites you, but you have to go through a regiment of drugs to get better. This country is sick. This country is very sick. This country is so sick that if you closed your eyes and picked someone randomly, you most likely picked a corrupt Kenyan. That is how corrupt this country is. Do we need to have conversations around this issue? Yes, we do. And we'll probably be having these conversations until the day we die, Ken, because this country is in desperate need of those conversations. If we remember tear gas Mondays in this country, if we remember how many times people did not go to work because of elections in this country, and then we dare say that our leaders have not spoken about BBI. How many times has the president been on record and saying that the one thing he wants to be remembered for is uniting this country? How can we forget that for the first time in living history, Raila Odinga and the sitting president of this country went to Kisumu to great jubilation? How do we want to throw away?
Mark, your point has been made.
Yes.
But you haven't even attempted to answer my very simple question.
Which question is
Tell
that,
me
sir?
the vacuum in the current laws that cannot address what you're talking about.
We're not addressing laws.
No, but that's
cannot-
what the problem is.
Listen,
That's what the problem
listen,
is.
this is the problem.
Yes.
Please understand. Even the Bible tells you the law cannot fix sin. And this is what people don't understand. If you
Which
don't-
verse is this?
So
we can-
BBI
it's in
so-
Romans.
so BBI is
Read
revelation.
from Romans chapter 4 to chapter 6. So let me put it in perspective so we understand. Whenever you introduce a law without changing the hearts of people, the reality of what happens is they find ways around the law.
So BBI will change the
happening.
hearts of
No, the point of having a conversation, just the same way you go listen to a preacher, is so that your heart can change. Listen, which law has ever been written that changed your heart? When they write a
And that
law
is why
that
I'm
says
asking.
that
So
interest cap rates will
will
change,
will BBI change the hearts of Kenyans?
Have our bankers' hearts changed?
Will BBI change
But
the hearts
that's-
of Kenyans?
Can I ask you a question? Can I ask you a
You've
question?
not responded to mine.
No, I'm asking.
You have just said
Okay, can I
that-
tell you how it has changed? Can I give you an example?
As in it's not
Can
yet
I
out
give
and
you-
it has already
can
changed.
Can I give you an example?
Okay,
Can
go
I
ahead.
give you an example?
Yes.
This country before March 9th last year was on tenterhooks. This country, there are people who, if you ask them in their businesses, people had formed camps. This country had a president and a people's president. This very country had a swearing in. You sit in a country today where you're not worried about tear gas Monday, and you're not saying
you are
it has
saying
no
what
effect.
all of us know. I'm yet to hear that new thing that BBI has done. What exactly are you saying, Mark?
Wait, so it did something, but you're arguing it did do something.
This is what is what exactly
This is
because number one,
no, so it has done nothing.
What Mark is telling us is literally nothing new. We know all that. What we are saying is, what exactly didn't we have
You
then?
can't even answer my question.
We
Which
were on
question haven't I answered?
tenterhooks. Mark, when we were on the tenterhooks, and that
Yes.
we know.
Yes.
What exactly did we lack that BBI is going to bring in? You're talking about change of hearts. The handshake was just a ceasefire, right? We have not taken care of those issues. So what exactly is BBI?
Listen, let me ask. You're quite correct. Let's assume and follow your argument that it was a ceasefire, correct? And
It is, because we have not taken care of the underlying.
Yes. So you agree that there needs to be steps to
Yes, and BBI is not that process.
What is the process?
Implementation of the Constitution as
The
is.
laws as is, because we don't have.
This is what I'm thinking, by the way, Ken,
the
as they
implementation.
argue these guys.
Yes.
You see, your question actually has a lot of validity. It's just the fact that I don't think you can get the answer now. Because what you're asking is, we have laws, we have
The
existing
culture
laws. For instance,
Yes,
there
and
was
that's
a
what
reason.
national ethos.
There was a reason. Listen.
So to
What's the
Ken,
chapter of leadership and
Ken,
integrity supposed
there
to
was
address? Yes, what
there
is
was
it
a
supposed to
reason.
address? Yes.
There was a reason as to why IEBC came to be. There's a reason as to why the office of the DPP came to being. There's a reason as to why the EACC came to being, right?
Yes.
All these laws have been put there to radically, all right, work on matters which we thought needed urgency, all right? And that's why we thought these officers, and we still give them a lot of faith, you know, thinking or hoping that they will become, you know, or they will give the answers that the Kenyan society can be grateful for. So what your answer is trying to look at is, what are we going to do with the current laws? Because you feel they actually need to be
implemented as is.
Exactly.
Yes.
So, and that's why I'm saying the best we can do here, we are going to speculate a lot up until we see this document.
Let's
Okay,
talk
that
about
is the only way
we will
we can
know what's
actually
there.
even have exactly.
He has an idea. I said this is a program
Oh,
for
he
the
has an
people.
idea.
He has an
It
idea
will
of
change
the
hearts
outcome.
of people. BBI is a redemption process to him.
I'm coming back, Maliba, I'm coming back to you because there are callers who are holding on the line and we need to hear from them. Let me begin with David from Korea. David, good evening. What's your question or contribution to the show tonight? All right, let's go to Obed. We'll try and get David back online. Obed from Nairobi, good evening. Thank you for joining us. What's your question or contribution for the show tonight?
Hi, Ken. Thank you. Hello?
Hello, go ahead. We can hear you. Just reduce the sound on your TV.
I think the discussion we're having is a very healthy one, but it really is captured very well by what Pierre Bourdieu had when he was addressing a College of France about how to play with rules of the game of the public opinion and manufacturing public debate. I think the essence here is what we're lacking is leadership that is honest with its own people, but at the same time, we sort of like are working in a plantation economy where people are not allowed to think for themselves, and leadership feels that it can think on behalf of the people in the name of their own interest.
Okay.
So what he says is the higher you go in the hierarchy of excellence, the more you can play with the rules of the game, but only by virtue of status, starting from a position that is such that there is no doubt the anti-clerical humor of a cardinal is extremely clerical. So the argument being that it doesn't matter. As you go up, Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta in their positions have been able to set a standard for us. They've manufactured a debate. But it's us for Kenyans to decide what is good for us and how we should control and run that narrative.
Great.
We should take it from them and do it for ourselves.
My question. Thanks, Obed. Rosella, do you have another call online? All right, even as we wait for other callers, because there will be several calls, I'd like to read this from Alex Owiti to Maliba. He says, you should know that the design of 9 Points Agenda is the voice of the people through the political leadership. Even though it is a rhetoric, we need to have the conversation. It's an opportunity for Kenya to influence how it goes through to the referendum, which is the point Obed has made also. And one final one, the problem facing this country are more behavioral than institutional or structural. No need for BBI or constitutional change. We need to change our behavior. But how is the question?